start, and step by step the others will join us. On behalf of the Hungarian Economics Association and its foreign economy section, on behalf of its board, let me welcome the Ambassador of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Excellency Muhemmed Aejaz, the ambassador arriving to Hungary beginning of last year, if I remember well, serving already.
End of December 19, actually.
19, yes. Yeah. And doing a lot for the bilateral relationships between the two countries. And we are very happy that you could find time and come and share your views on the future of Pakistan, the present times of Pakistan, and the bilateral relationships. So after these few ideas, may I introduce the professional career of the ambassador, who joined the foreign ministry 30 years ago in Islamabad in 1992, served in different posts in Paris, in Stockholm, in Kabul. Your two last posts were already ambassadorial posts, and the ambassador served also as additional secretary, which is corresponding to our undersecretary, deputy secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, dealing with the Afghan peace process that was initiated by the Russian, Chinese, Americans, that led really to the peace agreement signed about a year ago, right, Ambassador?
Yes,
a year ago. That is leading now to the withdrawal. That is leading now to the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, American troops from Afghanistan. So the ambassador is a very experienced, high-level diplomat, and we are really honored that you could join us and deliver your speech. Before I pass over the word to the ambassador, may I ask everybody to switch off your microphones, so it is only the ambassador that speaks and no interference is happening. Ambassador, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear Mr. Dr. Ivan Nyíri, the Honorary Lifetime President of the Hungarian Economic Association, members of the association, it gives me really a great privilege to be able to speak to this outstanding civil organization on the economic front in Hungary. I've heard it's the oldest. So indeed, it's a pleasure and privilege. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to brief you a bit about Pakistan, its role in the region that we've played so far, a little bit of it, and how we see Pakistan's position and role developing in the region globally in the 21st century. The topic of my today's discussion, as I said, no, please, if you can just keep it on the same slide, previous one. Topic of my today's discussion is Pakistan, a transition from geopolitics to geoeconomics. And I have deliberately chosen this topic knowing the context and the kind of forum I'm speaking on. It's a very vast topic, but I will try to basically in the next initial 10 minutes try to focus on one particular aspect of Pakistan, and that is its very unique geostrategic location. Ladies and gentlemen, as you would agree that the geostrategic location of a country is something which determines not only its geography, but also influences its history, its economy, its culture, its perceptions. Like Hungary is a very uniquely located country in Central Europe, and almost at the confluence of East and West. And that's why perhaps some say that perhaps the Hungarians are the most Eastern Westerners or the most Western Easterners. I don't know to what extent this perception may be right, but that kind of a perception, I think, must have its roots due to the very unique geostrategic location of Hungary. So next, please. Pakistan similarly has a very unique geostrategic location. And in this talk that I hope to finish by 25 or 27 minutes, the sequence of my talk is that after initially introducing some basic facts about Pakistan, I will, in the next 4 or 5 slides, try to highlight very specific geostrategic location-related peculiarities of Pakistan, which I think is a must to understand if you have to understand how Pakistan has evolved during its 74 years of existence. And after that introduction, I would basically then like to take over my discussion to the fact that why Pakistan, its leadership and its people consider that there should be a shift in the focus in Pakistan, and which is already taking place under the current government with Prime Minister Imran Khan, our foreign minister, and other leaders, that the shift should be from geopolitics to geoeconomics. To understand the whys of that question, I think it is also important in a gist, and I would not take into a long discussion because it's an economic forum, and I understand that my purpose is not to brief you on history of Pakistan. But on this slide, if you focus on the initial 3 red lines, this in a very brief nutshell is the history of Pakistan, the 74 years of history of Pakistan. I have any Pakistani, if you ask him, could broadly divide our history into these 3 regions or eras. 1947, when Pakistan is born, till 1971, when unfortunately Pakistan loses its eastern part and which becomes Bangladesh. These 24 years initial have been painful for a newly born state for a number of reasons, some of which I'll highlight a little bit in detail in the next 2 slides or 1 slide. But the important thing is that the eastern neighbor, which was created with Pakistan after independence of the subcontinent, India and Pakistan, was 5 times the size of Pakistan and, frankly speaking, not very willing to accept the existence of Pakistan. We believe, and we have been vocally saying it at all forums, that India was responsible for creating the Kashmir issue. The unfortunate sequence of events related to security of Pakistan that started there ultimately led to the breakup of Pakistan in 1971. So the initial 24 years was a painful period ending in the dismemberment of Pakistan. And while the issues of Kashmir are alive today, in fact, too much aggravated even today, and India is doing whatever it has been doing. To add to it, the next 30 years, on the western border of Pakistan, a new front was opened, a new wound opened in the shape of a simmering, unstable Afghanistan. All of you know, Afghanistan has been going through a conflict, perpetual war for the last 40 years. And after Afghanistan, it's basically Pakistan which has suffered the most in the form of extremism, in the form of millions of refugees, and all other nuisances. But the important thing to note that I want you to note is that the trouble that started in Afghanistan by Soviet Union's occupation of Afghanistan was ultimately defeated or reversed with the help of Pakistan playing a frontline partner with the United States and rest of the Western world Given our very old alliance with the Western world since the UK's presence before the creation of Pakistan in the subcontinent. But when the US started this so-called confrontation with the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, for the very first time, this concept of jihad, or a religious concept, was introduced in the US-led effort to defeat this godless, atheist, communist Soviet Union. Maybe it worked very well. If you see the movies of that time, say a very, very popular movie, one I remember right now is John Rambo's, Sylvester Stallone's Rocky IV. And the American hero is eulogizing and very proud of fighting together with the so-called Mujahideen at that time. So that was the level of support that the US provided, not only militarily and financially, but emotionally. And once the Soviet Union was defeated, the United States, along with the Western Europe, just left Afghanistan abruptly, high and dry, creating a vacuum, as a result of which, ultimately we see, if you see in the slide, the outcome was religiously charged entities like Taliban. And while this is the 54th years of our existence, and as if these two issues, the Kashmir and India and Afghanistan, were not enough, post 9/11, the new genie of terrorism and extremism was laid open to the whole of the world. But I think no country other than Pakistan has suffered more than that. You might not know that we have lost 84,000 of our nationals in confronting this terrorism genie head on. We have had incalculable economic losses. Some estimates say it's around $126 to $130 billion. Pakistani nation and Pakistani military, with lots of sacrifices and resilience, alhamdulillah, has been able to, we would say, almost defeat this thing now. We are confident that it has been defeated, but the complications, all these three security related pressures of 74 years, initial 24, then up to year 54, and last 20 years because of terrorism, has had some serious impacts on Pakistan and its society. There was an eruption, almost a popping up of so many terrorist organizations in the region, many of them now banned. There was a new extremist narrative created by these organizations in the name of Islam, to which an average, very balanced, liberal Pakistani Muslim never agreed, will never agree. And we have tried to counter it. And there are other issues internationally in the form of Islamophobia, blasphemy. So you must have heard a lot. The reason I quickly tried to sum these three things together was to give you the context in which Pakistan has survived since its birth. So I think that while trying to understand what Pakistan is, what it can do, what it cannot do, what you as a European can expect Pakistan to do, if you understand this context, perhaps it will be much more easier for you to at least take the message that I'm trying to give you today. So from here, the next. Okay. So now I start with that little more detailed background. I'll start my actual, talk. As you know, Pakistan is situated in South Asia. It's a country of 212.2 million people, the fifth most populous country in the world. We are 33rd largest country by area. Here in this slide, one thing that I would like you to focus on is the neighbors that we have. We have India on our east, China on the north, Afghanistan and Iran more on the west, and on the south we have the Arabian Sea. And we have the sixth largest military in the world. We are a nuclear power. And one important demographic fact that I would like to highlight about Pakistan is that we have a very young population. Almost 65%, a bit more of our population is comprised of people who are aged 30 years or less. So this is something that is, these are important variables in trying to understand Pakistan. Next, please. Now, this is the map of Pakistan, but the reason of flashing it to you is to indicate that strategic location that I had been talking about. As you now see, the border highlighted red on the west of Pakistan is our border with Afghanistan. This border you might have heard for two main reasons. One, during the last 40 years, ever since the Afghan conflict started, this border has been much in talk because it has been a thoroughfare of free corridor for extremists, terrorists, narcotics, arms, refugees, you name it, all the bad things. Simply because this is not a normal border. It is a border which is 2,430 kilometers long at heights which are from 3,000 to 6,000 or more meters. So it is a very uninhabited kind of terrain along the Hindu Kush region, where traditionally for centuries people have crossed between the two countries without any control. So this is one variable which has been the cause of all troubles, traditionally and more recently. If you see the next border on our east, the solid red line is our border created at the time of creation of India and Pakistan, at the time of independence of subcontinent. And while this is an international border, but given the kind of hostility we have faced from a 5 times larger neighbor who simply refused to accept Pakistan's existence from the day one, we have fought 2 wars across this international border in 1965 and 1971. There were also other 2 major military engagements in Kargil in 1948 as well. The dotted line that you see is actually the root cause of all problems in this region. It is basically called the line of control, and the green area that you see on top is the Kashmir. It's a fully disputed area, while India tends to show it as part of its country. It is not by all international conventions, by all international standards. It is not a part of India. It's a disputed territory. And the dotted line shows actually the area on the Pakistani side. That is the area we control. On the Indian side, it is the area Indians control. And the Indian Valley is, the center of ongoing freedom struggle for a very long time. Next. And now if you see the yellow line near the more southwestern part of Pakistan, this is the border of Pakistan with Iran. Traditionally, we used to call this border as a border of friendship and amity, because, out of all these so-called burning borders where we constantly face security threats, this was the only border that remained quite peaceful for almost 50 years. But thanks to our neighbor in the east, now we are constantly facing terrorist attacks and terrorist threats emanating from the Iranian territory. Organizations like BLA and everyone is attacking Pakistan, and there have been a number of that. Now that map that you saw was just the map of Pakistan. Now take that country with all these difficult borders and put it in the context of the region, and you see that Pakistan is actually situated at the confluence of, I would say, 5 regions: South Asia, which is India; North Asia, China; Central Asia with Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, or Turkmenistan. Then West Asia, which constitutes Afghanistan and Iran. Perhaps Arabian Sea is our most peaceful and docile neighbor that Pakistan has, because if you see out of these more than 6,000 kilometers of borders, it's only either this 1,000 stretch of Pakistani border along the Arabian Sea or around 500 stretch of our border with China that have remained ever peaceful. Other than that, Pakistan has faced serious security troubles all along its existence during the last 74 years. So this is particularly that specific strategic location thing that I wanted to highlight. And summing it up, I would say that if you see the period from 1947 to 70 has determined what Pakistani state is today. We were born as a very security vulnerable state. You have seen the borders and the threats we have had. You remember Pakistan was born in 1947, just at the start of the Cold War. And it was a time when you had to be on either of the side of one of the blocks. Again, we were a young, newly born state with serious administrative and economic problems. And if you know the history, I think the largest ever migration of humans between two countries that has ever taken place was between newly created India and Pakistan. Almost 14 million migrants moved either from India to Pakistan or vice versa. There were lots of bloodshed in that, very terrible times. So Pakistan was created in a very difficult kind of situation. You know, separation and independence had its toll on the people. Added to that, as I indicated earlier, was the very adversarial environment this new state had, both on its east and west. I've spoken a bit about the Indian actions, but even Afghanistan was a country which did not recognize Pakistan. And as I said, the red border that we have, while it is a fully internationally recognized by all conventions and international border, it's a settled question, but somehow Afghans still have some strange ideas about it, which is not tenable, baseless, but nonetheless they keep it in their mind. So, you know, the purpose of this introduction is basically to let you know repeatedly that what kind of security threats we face since our creation. So since it was basically the Cold War time, Pakistan then, given its natural alliance with the Western world, joined SEATO and CENTO in the 60s. We became part of the US-led Western alliance against the then Soviet Union. And it also actually followed almost a decade. The 1960s is perhaps the decade where we registered and experienced the growth and development in accordance with the true potential of Pakistan. If you see, we were achieving more than 8-9% of growth at that time. The industry grew at that time, agriculture grew at that time. And it was basically the results of some of the most renowned Pakistani effort of some most renowned Pakistani economists like Dr. Mahbubul Haq. Many of you might know him. He is the scientist, social scientist, credited with the creation of this HDI or Human Development Index. It was his 5-year plans, I think 2 or 3, which were executed, which led to that growth. And South Korea was so impressed that they took the blueprint from us and used it very effectively. But unfortunately, this initial 24 years period did not end well for Pakistan. It led ultimately to the dismemberment of Pakistan because our adversary was simply not ready to accept Pakistan's existence. I'll just finish this initial introduction with one remark that after this, these remarks, you would be able to understand, and the slide that I've shown, that the security concern, whenever you will talk to a Pakistani, be it a diplomat, an ambassador, a general, a politician, an average Pakistani person, the thing on the back of the mind is this picture. The security threat, the constant threats from all its borders, and the security situation that we have faced during 74 years. We have tried, alhamdulillah, and have been successful in balancing lots of things. Like after Pakistan became a nuclear power, I think there's a much hopefully minimized possibility of direct conflict between India and Pakistan. God forbid it happens, then South Asia becomes a nuclear flashpoint. We never want that to happen. Similarly, the Afghanistan problem is something which directly affects Pakistan, and Pakistan is one country that has done more efforts than any other country for its amicable, peaceful resolution. Because unless Afghanistan is settled, it's very difficult for Pakistan to prosper. And the terrorism and extremism, Pakistan is one country that has paid a huge price, but alhamdulillah, we are very confident. We have a very strong and professional army, and they have been able to block that threat, at least from affecting us in future. So this is something that I thought I would initially give to you, the difficult security situation. And from here now on, I will try to actually explain why in this context of particular geopolitical focus, we think it is important for Pakistan to shift its focus to the geoeconomics. So before moving on to main part of my presentation, I would like to give you just a glimpse of what's the pandemic situation in Pakistan. Alhamdulillah, during the first two waves, just like Hungary, we were not really that badly affected. Even in the third wave, while the toll is rising, even yesterday there were 100, and this is the figure for 19th May, I think for 20th May, it's 131 deaths. We have had so far 20,000 deaths and around 0.9 million total infections registered, around 3.9 million population has been vaccinated. But I think given the fact that we are a pretty huge country, and when we look at our eastern neighbor, India, unfortunately, we are very sad to see the situation there. We really hope that that kind of situation does not arise anywhere, because it's a huge challenge that humanity has to face. And our government is following the smart lockdown policy, because it's simply not possible, given our Prime Minister is very concerned that in case there is a lockdown, then it is very difficult for the poor people to survive. So what usually Pakistani authorities do, that whenever there is too large a number of cases in one particular area, that particular area is cordoned off strictly by the military and other law enforcing agencies for a few weeks before the situation improves. And that has been a strategy that has helped us and also appreciated by the World Health Organization. Next, please. So here I come to the main argument that, now with the perspective clear to you why we believe that Pakistani focus on the geopolitics. The world used to see this region in the context of some great games, and the world powers have played great games. But the Prime Minister of Pakistan has very categorically stated that we made mistakes in the past, but we will never be a part of others' war in future. That is the thinking which our military has, that is the thinking which our political leadership has. Because frankly, those three red lines, initial slide, if you remember, we have learned in 74 years that the only way we can progress is to shift this focus. Instead of being a geopolitically important location with all the warriors and terrorists and drug crossing it, why not shift this focus and let Pakistan be the corridor and hub for energy, trade, and economic activity to go through Pakistan. Other than the important position Pakistan has, Pakistan itself is pretty sizable market of 212 million people. And for countries like Hungary, I'm pretty sure that if you see its potential, many of the companies would here be convinced to think of profitable business in Pakistan. So our main shift in the policy is centered on economic security, especially under the vision given by Prime Minister Imran Khan. Our foreign minister has led from the front and has taken lots of strides in the economic diplomacy efforts. And we are very happy that last month, His Excellency Foreign Minister Peter Siarto was in Pakistan, and both foreign ministers joined joint economic diplomacy event, which went very, very successfully. So, as I said, the three pillars of this shift to geoeconomics is that we want to make connectivity as the theme for Pakistan, how it should relate to the region. The second theme is providing economic basis as development strategy. And thirdly, peace within our borders and beyond. I say it because, the last line I have very categorically said personal opinion because, I was born in the areas neighboring Pakistan. I served in Afghanistan, and before coming here, I was, as introduced by Dr. Nyiri, I was the Deputy State Secretary dealing with Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey. Given my very long association with this thing, and this line, while at the official level we have been categorically saying, and I say that Afghanistan's solution is only and only possible through an Afghan-owned, Afghan-led process. But my own personal opinion, which has developed during the past few 10, 15 years, is that while you would have heard this cliche that there is no military solution to Afghan problem, there's only a political solution. Frankly speaking, I even have started saying it to myself as loud thought sometime that there's no military or political solution to the Afghan problem. When I say political, you mean power politics of the great games will not resolve it. There's only and only an economic solution. And this is a statement or a position I would, my own opinion that I would like to take here using the, environment of the Hungarian Economic Association. Next, please. So we believe that Pakistan is a strategically placed country, and here is what I'm. Can you click on this map thing? Thank you. Now you see the same location, which in initial slides I tried to show to you as something of concern and security vulnerability. It's changing. Pakistan is actually becoming the center point for all the economic activity and future plans, be it the large infrastructure for traveling, the roads, the energy pipelines, or whatever. Can you please click on the blue arrow? No, have to go back. Yeah, please go next. The blue arrow only. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. So we believe that Pakistan is positioned in a way that it could be a gateway between very energy-rich Central Asian states, very financially liquid Gulf states, and economically very advanced East Asia, Asian countries. So this strategic advantage is huge in Pakistan. I know whenever I speak to people, even in Hungary, they say, we understand you are a big country, but we have eyes on other big economies in your neighborhood and all that. All that is fine, understandable from an economic perspective. But what we are trying to tell the world is that, and as I'll explain in a few coming slides, that look at Pakistan's position, not only in terms of its market of 212 people, but the relevance it has in the region, the connectivity options it provides to Central Asia and all the 5 regions surrounding it. And I think it's also sinks in well with Hungary's own approach of, a southern and eastern opening, as the government of Hungary has been saying. Your companies are focusing on Central Asia, and let me tell you the way to go to Central Asia once this CPEC is fully functional is through Pakistan. Next, please. Okay, so the China-Pakistan economic corridor, I'll now quickly wrap it up because rest of the slides are not really that much in detail. Here is the overall picture of what the China-Pakistan economic corridor is. It's a flagship project of the Belt and Road Initiative of China. Next, please. If you see the, sorry, if you could come back for a second. If you see the red line, the advantage of CPEC, this is the CPEC, it's around 2,200 kilometers long road and belt. The advantage is that if anyone is traveling, say, from Middle East to Beijing, if you take the normal route via, the Malacca Strait and Philippines and Indonesia that way, it's around 14,500 kilometers. But the CPEC makes it, cuts it short by more than 12,000 kilometers. It's just 2,500 kilometers travel in Pakistan and another few thousand in China to take your products to China or take the Chinese products to Pakistan. Next, please. It's a major project. It's a multi-dimensional project. There are energy-related projects. There are infrastructure-related projects, and it's so far is its value and the total investment is around $64 billion, out of which around 20% is a debt-based finance and 80% are joint ventures between Pakistan and China. Next, please. So this is what we are saying, that the regional connectivity is the theme for our shift to geoeconomics. And if and when it happens, it is bound to happen because it is economically feasible, it is economically beneficial, not only to Pakistan and China, but to Iran, to Afghanistan, even India, frankly speaking. It's a big economy, and I'm sure once they make up their mind and come out of this hangover, so they will be able to understand its importance. The Central Asian republics and the entire region. Next, please. And one very important area where other countries can invest is the China-Pakistan economic corridor, special economic zones. There are around a dozen zones. This is a list. It's written in too small, but around dozen zones. If you go to the next, they are supposed to be next. They are supposed to be kind of clusters, well protected, secure, economically subsidized clusters with lots of incentives where foreign countries and foreign companies can come, either set up their manufacturing units or they can set up their trading houses. Whatever kind of business you want to do, you can do it here. Produce thing, whatever you want to say. Say a Hungarian energy drink company can set up its plant in one of these special economic zones and export all of it, its manufacture, to one of the nearby destination. It's not necessary they have to send it to Pakistan. Next. As I said, this is the map, and the dots indicate the various specialized economic zones where many countries can benefit in future. Next. And another very important point to highlight is the Gwadar Sea Port, which is, I think, the jewel of the entire project. It is actually the deepest seaport in this entire region, which is able to take the load of very, very heavy ships, some of the heaviest ships, which were not possible earlier in this region. And it is being completed, almost completed, and it has started functioning. So I think this is the main front face through which all the economic activity of any scale of CPEC would take place. Next. I will quickly like to highlight that other than this relevance to the region, Pakistan itself is a land of opportunities. There's a tremendous potential for developing tourism-related business. Next. You see, there's a lot of history, some very historic. This is a famous mosque in Pakistan since the Mughal times. Next. There's a lot of beautiful scenery. Pakistan, is home to world's highest mountains. There is a point in Pakistan which is called the roof of the world, because the three mountainous ranges, Himalayas, Karakoram, and Hindu Kush, they actually spring up out of one point in Pakistan and then spread in various directions. So some amazing sceneries which are unparalleled. Europe, like I have lived more than 20 years in Europe, amazing beauty. Alps are so beautiful. But this is a completely different scale. These are very, very high mountains with some amazing valleys. Next. And no dearth of culture. We have got some unique cultural values and cultural things to present to the rest of the world. Next. Again, I want to highlight that Pakistan is home to, right now, the best road networks in entire South Asia. And the network of motorways, roads, and various other transmission and transport facilities that Pakistan has is unparalleled. Next. And we are constantly adding to it. You see on the left, we have that Karachi-Lahore motorway, but new ones are being added, and we hope that once the full-fledged economic activity starts, there will be no problem as far as communication is concerned. Next. And this, I want to quickly highlight some of the, ever since I came, I was very surprised to see that Hungary was not getting some of the best Pakistani iconic and internationally recognized produce, like our basmati rice, which, you know, some tried to steal this tag and this brand, but luckily we have got its geographical indicator back earlier this year. Basmati rice is a Pakistani brand, and we are very proud. We would be very happy to share it with our Hungarian market and friends. Next. Similarly, the Pakistani mango, it's the king of fruits. In Pakistan, we call mango as the king of fruits. And I'm very surprised very few good mango are coming here. I am making my effort through you. I would also like to suggest to you that please do consider it. It's an amazing fruit. I understand that's a little bit of rice, little bit of mango is coming through third-party sources to Hungary. You are buying it much more costlier because of involvement of second, third parties. Why not buy it cheaper from Pakistan? Next. Similarly, we have some amazing, and when I say it, don't say, consider that since I'm Pakistani ambassador, I'm convinced these are world-class surgical and medical instruments that we produce in Sialkot. Next. The sports equipment, this football that you see in all World Cup football matches, the EU League matches, this Adidas Telstar 18, it's produced in Pakistan. And Pakistan actually produces 70% of the world's football and a lot of other quality sports equipment. We are a country which loves sports. In 1994, for your information, we were champions of 5 sports at the same time: cricket, field hockey, squash, snooker, and yachting. But things, you know, have been difficult on the security front, but that the tradition is very strong. Next. And textile is actually the backbone of our industry. It's a confluence of the agriculture industry in Pakistan, a very, very strong, and some of the Pakistani textiles have a very strong niche market. Next. Leather products. Next. I'll quickly wrap up my presentation. I think I have overshot my time, but there was too much to tell, and I wanted to even to tell more. Our relations with the EU are very close, and we deeply value it. Europe is one of our largest trading partners. Some years back, it was the largest trading partner, but now I think China has taken it over. Still, I think 14.3% of our total trade is with Europe, and almost more than 28% of our exports come here. Next. So basically, it's textiles that we are sending, it's machinery and transport that we are getting from you. And thanks to the GSP Plus, during the last 10 years, our exports have doubled here. Next. And Pakistan-Hungary relations, that's one, alhamdulillah, good story for me to tell you, because as an ambassador, that's not only my job, but I think it's a relationship which is friendly, which has always been good. we have always cooperated traditionally with each other on multilateral fora and all that. And like Hungary, you know, like Pakistan, which is strategically located, Hungary is very strategically located. Both offer huge potential to each other. And we are very thankful to Hungary for its very strong support to Pakistan on the GSP Plus issue that you did earlier. And even the other day, Foreign Minister Siarto very kindly reiterated that he would like to continue that support to Pakistan. MOL is almost a household name in Pakistan. They are producing more than 15-17% of Pakistan's energy requirements. And bilateral trade, unfortunately, is very low. And that's really my desire, that we should be able to see some of the very Hungaricum, you know, produce, like you know, the duck liver and some of the nice agricultural produce, some of the amazing Pakistani produce I've shown you here. I hope can find time way into Pakistan, into Hungary. And but I think the hallmark of the efforts during the last 1 year has been some very successful visit of His Excellency Foreign Minister Peter Siarto to Pakistan last month. On 30th April he was there, and I think we have started a good beginning there. Next. And here's the last slide. The two foreign ministers had not only a very good conversation, they also chaired a joint Hungary-Pakistan economic diplomacy event where 18 very important, good selected Hungarian companies were there, their counterparts were there, there were some MOUs signed, and a lot of good talk about how Hungary and Pakistan can benefit from each other's tremendous economic potential. I think both countries, unfortunately, for the past few years, remained on their each other's blind spot, but that situation is changing. And my effort and the effort of Ambassador Bella Fazikas, your ambassador in Islamabad, would be to bring the relationship closer. I'm very sorry for having much overshot my given time, but I'm happy that I could say what I wanted to say. Thank you very much, Dr. Ivan, and the audience.
Thank you, Ambassador, for the most interesting presentation. We are not sorry that it was longer than originally planned. We got a lot of information about Pakistan. As you might have experienced, the layman, the average Hungarian, including economists, do not know too much about Pakistan, which, as you said, one of the powerhouses in Southeast Asia. And we think that much more could be, as you said, much more could be done in the bilateral trade. During your presentation, I got several questions from our viewers, which I will forward to you, but I have my own question, which came to my mind when you were presenting your borders, 2,000, 3,000 kilometer borders with different countries. The question, how do you secure your borders? Are there any fences in your borders? Because you might have known, you might have learned that when Hungary 5 years ago built some fences in the southern borders of the country to stop the illegal entry into the country of huge masses of people wanting to reach Western Europe, there was a lot of upheaval in the country, and also a lot of criticism came against Hungary because of building some fences in the southern borders. Did you ever build fences on your borders, and did you get any criticism from outside? Please, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you want me to explain on the presentation, or I can just explain like that, because that initial border with Afghanistan and the yellow border with Iran.
Can we go back to the...
If you think it will explain to the members joining now more.
Yes.
If you can just start it again and go to...
Page, slide 4, I believe.
Slide 4, I believe, yeah. Okay, if you can go back again, go back 2 times. So, okay, again go, okay. Now if you, next. This border, this is the border perhaps you are referring to. As I said, this is the border that has been notorious because it has been a thoroughfare for so many bad influences coming from Afghanistan to Pakistan, practically ruining our economy and culture. But more importantly, this is the border that unfortunately is in a very, very difficult terrain. And as I said, there was practically no control possible of who comes in and who goes out. That is the reason that, Pakistan, if many of you might not know, is home on average to 3 million Afghan refugees at any point in time during the past 4 decades. 3 million Afghans have lived in Pakistan for 4 continuous decades. That is again a world record in human history, which we really don't want anyone else to match, because it has been through a lot of pain. But the reasons 4 million Afghans could come into Pakistan was that this is a border which was traditionally treacherous, it's unmanned, no one can control it. So things remained like that since British time, and there was not much control on it. But when even during the Afghan trouble and the fight during last 30 years, refugees would come and go, and we were not really bothered. But when the threat, the genie of terrorism and extremism came out, then it became really a nuisance, because all the time the terrorists would cross at will this border and then bring mostly a bad reputation, bad name on Pakistan, because we have no dearth of enemies, and Indians and others would leave no stone unturned to show that, you see, this is the terrorist organization surviving in Pakistan. Very few people knew that this is an area that we could not control. But how we controlled it? Our military, after again a huge sacrifice and huge effort, now has almost completely fenced this 2000. It's a 2,340 kilometers border, but we have now completed fencing on almost 2,000 kilometers. Believe me, it's an humanly impossible kind of task that our military achieved in the face of constant crossfire from across the border, because there are a number of mafias and even the political issues. They don't want this to be closed. But Pakistan believes that unless we are able to control this border, we will not be able to control the flow of refugees, the flow of extremists, the flow of guns, the flow of narcotics, and all that. And just to add to the reference you gave for Hungary, frankly, very few people understand it. Perhaps Pakistan and Hungary are the only two countries in this world who have erected borders just for almost similar reasons. Before coming here, while I fully understand, we as Pakistanis have suffered this nuisance for the last 40 years. I could understand it, but having come here, looking at the history with which, say, the Hungarian government at one point in time might have been constrained to the extent to erect this border, it's fully understandable to me. And I think at a time comes when, to protect your own nation, to protect your own security, and to make sure that there is no free movement of people like that, you have to take such drastic measures. Alhamdulillah, we have completed it, and it is for the first time, again, to add one last point, it's for the first time that now we are more hopeful that we will be in a better situation to control, the nuisances coming over to Pakistan from Afghanistan.
Just to make sure that we understood well, 2,400 kilometers of fencing.
Yes, at all at the heights I told you, from 3,000 to 6,000 meters of mountains. It's all rugged mountain, very heavy equipment required there. But we really salute the military, the kind of, and believe me, in this process, we have lost 150 soldiers due to constant cross-firing. Even 7 days back, 4 full soldiers were martyred who were trying to erect this thing. And if you want, I can at the end there is one picture which I can show you if you are interested. Otherwise, it's okay.
Thank you, Ambassador. My last question, which I gathered, is about the scholarships which Hungary is providing to Pakistani students, the Stipendium Hungaricum. Where do you see the future of this scholarship program? Would there be more Pakistani students coming to Hungary?
Inshallah. I think the two things that Hungary has done, it has really made the relationship inseparable. It cannot be separated. One, the way Mall has created strong presence, footprint in Pakistan. It cannot be reversed. Mall is our ambassador, I think, for other Hungarian companies to how to focus in Pakistan, why to focus in Pakistan. And this increasing number of very talented, highly educated Pakistani young people coming to Hungary under the Hungarian Stipendium Hungaricum program, almost 200 coming every year. I think already more than 700 or 800 are here. And frankly, it is just because of this that I now foresee a time coming, maybe in 10 years' time, I would be out of service by then, maybe 15 years' time. But hopefully, we will have one country in entire world, and especially in Europe, where the Pakistani community, because I understand that many of them, after studying here, learning Hungarian language, some of them actually marrying here, some finding a job. So whatever Pakistani community ultimately we will come to have in Hungary, it will be one of the most representative communities composed entirely of highly educated people. And that, I think, is something credit goes to the Hungarian government. Thank you, Hungary.
As you have said, Ambassador, inshallah.
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 Definitely.
Okay, may I pass on the word to my colleagues, and they gathered also questions from the audience, and they have also questions to you. So please, the floor is yours to everyone. Tomas, I think you gathered some of the questions.
I cannot hear. I think the microphone is.
The microphone.
Once more, please, Tamás, you were muted.
Sorry. Most jó.
Megint nem jó, Tamás.
Now? Okay. So the question is, what are the goods likely to be traded between the two countries? What are the potential fields of cooperation?
I believe the potential is unlimited. The answer could be very long, but to cut it short, you have to see it from both perspectives. If you see it from Pakistan's perspective, depending how a Hungarian company is focusing, are you focusing on the Pakistani market of 212 million people for now, or you are thinking in the context of CPEC and trading through Pakistan to other regions? So it will vary. Specialized economic zones give you liberty to produce anything you want and export it anywhere without any hindrance, because it is part of that. So that's for the CPEC. As for bilateral trade, I think both Pakistan and Hungary have agriculture as the backbones of their economies. The traditional backbones, at least for Hungary, is still the backbone in Pakistan. We have got some amazing produce. Like I told you about Pakistani produce, I'm very impressed with the kind of quality seeds you have. The achievements Hungary has made in agriculture. You are 3-4 steps ahead of Pakistan, other than the mechanization, the techniques. And we have already signed an MOU between the two agricultural ministries for further cooperation. The water resource management, I'm really so much impressed with it, because frankly, my own education is science. I actually graduated as a doctor of medicine MBBS we call it, and then so science I understand, and scientific context and concepts I understand. The advancement Hungary has made on the water resource management is something very attractive to Pakistan. There's a tremendous potential for it because you have the expertise and Pakistan has the need. We need to manage our water resources. And then on the other side, Pakistan can really give you some amazing products. I highlighted some of them, but if you go to services sector, for example, the IT services is one highly potential service. You know, Pakistan has got a whole lot army of youthful who are good in English speaking, very well trained in IT skills. There are lots of companies in Hungary who might be interested in hiring them, their services. And also, I think on the engineering side, there is a lot of capacity. The other day, even after the foreign minister's visit, I got a query from one of the top companies in Pakistan. It's called Fecto. If you just Google it, FECTO, it's one of the big icons, group of industries, and they have expressed their desire. They said that, Ambassador, whenever you speak to someone, please let them know that we want to have a joint venture. They are into sugar, they are into paper, they are into tractors, they are into cement. And so they are looking for joint ventures. I think if we talk in non-specific terms, there could be huge potential, but I think it is time. My own desire and efforts are that since practically no trade is taking place, let it take it this way, that why not take the iconic products from each country, like your quality seeds, your some agricultural produce, your this hell energy drink, which the foreign minister the other day, Siarto, said in Pakistan we would like to export and even manufacture in Pakistan, and some of the best produce we have, just to start the trade. And we are also working for a direct air link between Pakistan and Hungary. I think if that happens, then it will actually bring the two trading communities face to face in direct contact, because we as a diplomat at the most can tell you, brief you for half an hour, 1 hour, can maybe send a few messages, but it's ultimately up to the two trading communities. Last month, we also actually launched a Hungary-Pakistan trade and economic window, and it's an online forum. Through this forum, I would like to request all of you to please register yourself there. All the economic, all the Hungarian companies interested in trading with Pakistan, not necessarily trading straight away. If you have some interest, just register yourself and you'll find a lot of information what is on the offer. Because I think the best language that a trader would understand will be that of a trader. And we have got a very active set of traders on the Pakistani end.
May I continue with another question, Ivan?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So connecting to this, what you just mentioned, Your Excellency, what is your personal opinion about mall in Pakistan? What is your opinion about the expansion plans, and what is the stand of the government of Pakistan on mall plans to acquire more exploration sites?
I think mall has is almost a household name. Everyone knows mall. It's not a company that you need to introduce to someone. They are providing, as I said, around 15% of our oil requirements, around 25% of the gas requirements. They are actually operating the biggest gas exploration block in Pakistan, and their presence is, very convincing. Or almost 21 years now, and they've made a lot of investments directly and through their subsidiaries and other partners in Pakistan. I believe I had met the vice president of MOL a few months back personally. I believe they have a plan. There is some proposal also, to update one of our existing agreements, which is about I think, about tax, and that is something which I think is important as a step, as an important step, because an investment protection treaty as well, because after that perhaps the gates will open between Hungary and Pakistan, especially for MOL, to bring in more investment and have more stronger presence in Pakistan. So the MOL has been in touch with the Pakistani concerned ministries, authorities. In fact, successive generation of leaderships. When I visited for Vice President's office, he showed me his photographs with at least 3 prime ministers. So I said that, you know, with this kind of an engagement, you don't need to have any more, assistance from an ambassador like me. But nonetheless, our effort is to do whatever we can, you know, to encourage MOL. MOL is an ambassador for all other Hungarian companies to focus on Pakistan. They can show, they can lead the way how to do it, and maybe what not to do in some areas.
Any other question? I would have another one. Do you know of any tour operator in Hungary organized tours to Pakistan for Hungarian tourists?
Regularly. Even the other day, I think we issued 20 visas for 23 tourists. It was a group of tourists. And the main, I think it's a partnership between a company in Pakistan and Hungary, and they have been doing it collaboration. Actually, tourism is one sector which gives you lots of possibilities. Hungary is already much important destination for tourists in this part of Europe. And creating collaborations, I have actually served in Sri Lanka, I've served in Stockholm and Paris. You know, tourism is a kind of activity which mainly gets promoted by cooperation between the tourist agencies. And if they can have some kind of joint handshake, a group of people, say, who arrive in Pakistan. There are many Chinese, say, for example, coming to Pakistan recently. Many tourists from the Buddhist countries, because Pakistan is home to the oldest Gandhara civilization. And say if there could be a handshake that all those tourists who are coming to Pakistan, they could be told about Hungary and some kind of package, then I'm sure that there will be a new flow of tourists coming from Pakistan to Hungary, and similarly on the reverse, from Hungary to Pakistan. I think that's a very potential area.
Clear. Any other question, observation?
Yes, one more from my side. Actually, you have mentioned, Excellency, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, that only 20% of this is debt-based financed, and 80% of it is in a joint venture. Actually, in the news, we are very well aware that most of the time China is dealing with 100% or close to 100% debt financed projects. It's like sometimes it's like a deadly hug from the China side. How could you manage to get this good amount like this, only 20%?
I think since I did not dwell much on it, and I was talking more in the context of security threat and all that, but I did mention that perhaps the only secure and safe border for the 74 years of existence has been with China. The friendship Pakistan and China has, honestly, is unmatched. The very fact that CPEC passes through Pakistan, and while BRI is a BRI is a world-renowned, huge project of maybe decades and generations. But the starting point is CPEC. And the very fact that China considered to start it in Pakistan is based on a very close relationship that the two countries have had. China is a country which has always supported Pakistan very fairly, like it has supported many other developing countries. not only economically, but also politically. Back in 60s when Pakistan was growing, by the way, and 70s when, you know, the United States and China were not having very good relationship, Pakistan played the same role. And I think at that time, bringing the foreign minister, Secretary of State Kissinger, you know, in direct touch with China, and, you know, letting the two come closer. But Pakistan and Hungary have had a very good friendship. So it's effectively a reflection of the friendly relationship that the two countries have had. There's a lot of talk and some, I must say, nonsense talk about very high rate that, say, Chinese would be so-called extracting from Pakistan. I didn't want to mention it because my purpose, of course, is not to bash India, but if you go and do a little Google search, CPEC is something which India has never wanted. And some years back, I think in 2015, they had categorically declared that we are allocating 80 billion Indian rupees to make sure that this project doesn't take place or doesn't go off the. So there's a lot of propaganda. I'm just saying that there's a lot of propaganda that will be initiated maybe in some very adversarial environments, but it goes and takes turns. We know that basically it is something that is good, and even that 20% loan is actually a long-term loan on relatively good terms, 25 years or 26 years of repayment period. Rest, it's something which is beneficial to both countries. You know, I told you the advantage CPEC gives to China. It's cutting down the whole distance by 12,000 kilometers if you go through the state of Malacca and via Indonesia and all that. So it's a huge advantage to China also. And that's the spirit with which we have always worked.
If there are no any more questions, then let me thank the ambassador for this very interesting presentation. I think all on screen and all the rest off screen have learned a lot about Pakistan. And I believe that the goal will be achieved, that the two countries would be brought closer together and trade could increase, and knowing each other is now in a better position than it was before the ambassador's presentation. Excellency, we are very grateful. And on behalf of the Hungarian Economics Association and its Foreign Economy section, I want to thank you. Thank you in the name of the board and everyone who was present today.